Captain Shaw, Captain Little, Captain Buzon, Brother-in-law Commander Stephen Scoggin, Warrant Officer Aquino and Layla, Master Chief Herndon, Chief Roth, Chief Santos, Chief Cabanilla, distinguished visitors, officers of Combat Aircraft Survivability Test and Lethality, shipmates, family, and friends, good afternoon. I am deeply honored by your presence during my retirement ceremony today. Captain Little, thank you for allowing the whole unit to have training here in San Diego this weekend. That enabled me to hold my ceremony here, Vice Maryland, close to family and friends. Captain Shaw, thank you for your eloquent speech, kind words, and for accepting my invite after just recently returning from another arduous deployment in Afghanistan. I have known Captain Shaw since our early days in AirPac and in NADAP North Island as the XO and CO. How time flies. I realize that I have been a member of the United States Navy for over 30 years. I am near the end of a colorful and rewarding career. I feel sad that I am living a lifestyle full of friends and adventure, punctuated with meaningful missions, and glad that I can finally spend most of my time at home with my wife, Lorna, and enjoy doing things together. Serving in the Navy is the second best thing that ever happened in my life. Foremost is getting married to Lorna and raising our daughter Maybelline. She is now married to Dustin and blessed us with our grandson Connor. Let me touch on some historical highlights. The beauty about being a member of the United States Navy is that you witness history and contribute to it as it unfolds. This will give away my age, of course. I was on the USS Enterprise with Fighter Squadron 2 off the coast of Eastern Africa when the US gave Uganda's dictator, Idi Amin, a 24-hour ultimatum to release the 200 missionaries that he forcibly held hostage. Idi Amin promptly escorted them to safety for a flight out of his country. I don't blame him for doing that. The USS Enterprise and its task force is a formidable sight from his coast. I also witnessed the Shah of Iran come aboard the Big E for a flight demo of the then brand new F-14 Tomcats. He was so impressed that he ordered and bought these fighter planes immediately thereafter. What was most impressive in my mind as a young jet machinist mate was the presence of the carriers Enterprise, America, Midway, and Ranger off the coast of Vietnam during the fall of Saigon. We evacuated personnel there and waited for orders from Washington, D.C. When no orders came, my ship took 7 days to offload weapons, 724 prior to returning to QB Point in Subic Bay, Philippines. I was the maintenance officer during a detachment for VR-57 when we flew Marines from Okinawa to the amphib ship Tripoli in Subic around the clock for 4 days in the early days of Operation Desert Shield. I was also the OIC in operational preps in South Korea to deploy a digital kill chain called the Raider to deter a similar North Korean invasion that happened in early 50s. We know how unstable the North Korean regime is by watching CNN and by reading the web news. So now, I belong to Combat Aircraft Survivability, Test and Lethality, CASL, best described in my mind as the Criminal Investigative Service of shot down aircraft in Iraq and now in Afghanistan. The expert assessors from my unit will find the cause of an aircraft mishap and hopefully prevent it from happening in the future through tactical recommendations to operators and aircraft modifications to NavAir. They are the reason why we have fewer mishaps now compared to the Vietnam days of old. I applaud our members who risked their lives in those theaters of operation. The Castle headquarters in NavAir and detachments in Dayton, Ohio, and China Lake, California support our missions there. I pray for the safety of our men currently deployed. I realized during my career that the US is the most powerful, yet the kindest country in the world. It is this combination that is the greatest blessing to the US and the international community. Let us think about this for a moment. Could you imagine what kind of world we will be in if an aggressor country has a fraction of our capability? May I ask the folks who have deployed in Iraq and Afghanistan in support of our global war on terrorism to please stand up? I would like to ask the audience to give these fighting men of the United States Armed Forces a round of applause. Thank you for your services, sir. Thank you, Captain Shaw, for your thesis on leadership, on showing up and doing your best. Now, we know that you cannot be a good leader unless you do both. I espouse the theory of servant leadership by Matthew Earnhardt. Actually, I apply this theory in leading the most important organization to me, which is my family. It is a topic of discussion in one of the chapters of the Joint Professional Military Education, or JPME course, that most of you studied to enhance your military career. The model of servant leading is based on unconditional love, humility, altruism, vision, trust, empowerment, and service. Let me summarize the models of servant leadership. The servant leader values the people in his organization and shows unconditional concern for the well-being of the personnel under him. Humility is a virtue that rejects self-glorification and is a vital quality of a leader. So, why is this important? It is because humility allows leaders to see beyond self-interest and recognize the value of a follower in an organization. Altruism is linked to servant leadership in that it demonstrates a person to be a servant for some greater good than his own individual goodness. With regards to vision in servant leadership, a leader is a teacher vested in growing the individual in his organization. It is a way to inspire his people, motivate and move with high hopes in the future. He then modifies his organization to fit the various interests and goals of the members. Integrity and trust lead to credibility of the servant leader and further results to mutual trust between the follower and organization. You see this example a lot in the United States Navy. Any failure along the command is owned by the commanding officer, who is the final responsible person in the organization. Empowerment translates to followers getting more responsibility as they gain confidence and skill. Empowerment also works at home. You give simple tasks to your children and later more complicated projects as they gain confidence and skill. Service is an essential element to servant leaders and is a primary function of leadership. Leaders emulate a service model for followers. The servant leader is called to serve and see life as a mission of service. This calling induces an acceptance of responsibility for others. He is commanded to serve his followers and is committed to their well-being. Therefore, the great leaders must first serve others, and this is central to their own success. That is all I want to touch on about servant leadership for now. I won't keep you long because this ceremony is a celebration more than a sad goodbye. I have lots of sea stories to share, so please join us and enjoy the food and refreshments waiting at the F Troop Chief's Cantina, which is a short par 4 distance away. I salute you, my family and friends. May God bless America and the United States Navy.